2020 2024. Sorry, I'm dying. 2024 book releases. It is the end of 2023, and I am so excited to look ahead at books that are coming out in 2024. I have put together a list of over 30 books in the sci-fi and fantasy genre that I am looking forward to in 2024, and only a couple had to be omitted due to the ongoing boycott against St. Martin's Press and its imprints, which I am in support of. All right, and with a slight change in background, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to go month by month, and there are a lot to cover, so I will do my best to be quick. The first book that I'm going to talk about is Dark Star Burning, Ash Falls White by Amelie Wen Zhao. This is the sequel to Song of Silver, Flame Like Night, which came out in January of 2023. And it's about a girl named Lan who lives in a sort of fantasy China that has been conquered by a Western civilization called It's the Atlanteans. And I would market this as kind of like a more YA-friendly version of the Poppy War. It's much less war-focused, but it still has similar themes of, a small oppressed people fighting against colonization or conquering from an enemy. And there is magic, although this one I would say is a little more magic-oriented than the Poppy War. But I greatly enjoyed it. It took much more direct inspiration from wuxia, cultivation, Chinese fantasy, and I am looking forward to the sequel. The next one on the list is So Let Them Burn by Camilla Cole. This is a debut, and if you were paying attention to the Kate Karan drama going on, then you would know that this is one of the books that was targeted. So Let Them Burn by Camilla Cole is about a woman named Farron Vincent. It's a Jamaican-inspired fantasy featuring a character who's kind of already finished the typical hero's journey and is dealing with a lot of the aftermath and the fact that she's only 17 years old and is kind of like endgame powerful, like a level 20 or epic level D&D character, but there's no one left to fight. And her sister gets into this sort of predicament relating to dragons that belong to the enemy. And so I'm really interested. I mean, we've had a great year of dragon books. I'm still trying to catch up on those, but I'm also looking forward to more dragon books. The next one is Feybound by Sarah El Arifi. I actually already have a copy of this book. It was in my December fairy loot box, but it comes out technically in January 18th. Feybound is a world that's going to have, elves, but also fae, which hasn't been that common so far. We've seen a lot of fae books, and elves have kind of dropped off, but I'm glad to see them back because elves are one of my favorite fantasy races. And it's about a war that has been happening, and these two sisters who get drawn through to the fae court. So, not really sure what's going to happen there. I don't know if it's romantasy or not, but I haven't read Sarah El Arifi's other books, The Final Strife, but I am looking forward to trying this one out, especially since I have my own physical copy. Next on the list is A Drop of Venom by Sanjini Patel. A Drop of Venom is being marketed as a sort of YA Circe and is a feminist retelling of Medusa, which is also crossed over with Indian mythology. And I know a lot of people are kind of sick of Greek retellings, but the fact that this one is incorporating another mythology really piqued my interest. And so even though I haven't read many YA or many Greek retellings lately, this is also from Rick Riordan Presents, and I trust Rick Riordan to have great taste in who gets published, so I'm willing to give this one a try. The last one coming out in January is Unbound by Christy Healy. This is another debut, and this one caught my attention because it is another one of those Celtic retellings or Celtic-inspired stories. It seems to be a sort of Beauty and the Beast retelling and follows Rosalind O'Conquer. I hope I said that right. And she's been trapped in a tower, but wants to sort of take control of her own life. And she meets someone who helps her believe that she might actually be able to do that. Not really sure where it's going to go from there. Just really looking forward to more books that take inspiration from Irish mythology. Moving on to February, we have The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. I haven't really heard anyone talking about this one yet, but it is a sort of fantasy with a little bit of mystery thriller, maybe even some sci-fi elements, kind of hard to tell. But there is leviathans and a murder mystery, and a detective is our main character, Anna de Labra, who is called in to investigate this murder. And she is really eccentric and has an assistant, Dinios Cole. And so Dinios has a perfect memory and is meant to be the investigator's eyes and ears. And it seems like the two are going to grow close together. So maybe, I don't know if it's going to be romance. I kind of don't know. I don't really care if it is or not. I'm just kind of really interested in this fantasy mystery, murder mystery. I've become more interested in mysteries over the last year or two. And if it crosses over with fantasy, even better. Next on the list is Fathom Folk by Eliza Chan. I really hope this one is going to be in one of my book boxes. I already know the February theme for Fairy Loot, and I know for the YA, but I don't know the adult. And this one could be the March pick as well because it comes out at the end of February. So Fathom Folk is another, Asian myth-inspired fantasy. It features a semi-submerged city of Tiankawi, and it says it's for fans of Jade City and the Bone Shard Daughter. And it's going to have, a lot of undersea water mythical creatures, sirens, sea witches, kelpies, kappas. Our main characters are a half-siren Mira, and an aristocratic water dragon named Nami, and also a second-generation sea witch named Cordelia. I have no idea how all of these characters are going to interact. It seems like there's going to be political intrigue, and so that's really all I need to know. Next on the list is Sunbringer by Hannah Kaner. This is the sequel to God Killer, which I read and loved. I already forgot the main character's name, Kissin. Kissin is our sort of main character. She is a God Killer, which according to the title is someone who kills any of the numerous gods that pop into existence all the time in this fantasy world, which I really love the concept of just having enough devotion or belief in something can kind of manifest it. But, gods are awful a lot of times, actually, and will do horrible things in order to gain more followers. So she makes a lot of good money killing gods in this specific kingdom where, after a most recent war, gods have been outlawed, all of them, and all worship of them. But we have a couple other characters that come along on this quest to go to a ruined city that used to be completely dedicated to the gods. And there's they're being hunted, but they don't necessarily know why. And there was such a great big battle at the end of the first one that ended on this sort of cliffhanger with some mysteries still unsolved. So I'm really excited about the sequel. The next one is A Tempest of Tea by Hafsa Faisal. Now this one I am positive is going to be in one of my book boxes. I won't say which one. And I actually haven't read Hafsa Faisal's other duology, We Hunt the Flame, We Free the Stars. I have it. I just haven't read it yet, but I couldn't help getting excited for this one when I read the sort of when people started talking about it and I looked up the synopsis. It's a fantasy duology, so this will be the first book, and it features Arthi is an orphan girl and her crew who get tangled in a heist with vampires, which I have not been looking for vampire books, but it's a heist and it's fantasy, so I will read anything with those two taglines together. I will definitely give it a chance, and I will most likely enjoy it. Next is The Imposition of Unnecessary Obstacles by Malka Ann Older, and I've actually already read this one. I got a digital ARC from NetGalley a few months ago, and it is the sequel to The Mimicking of Known Successes. These titles are so long and convoluted, but I love them. This is like what I would call cozy sci-fi. It's got a little bit of mystery. It's part of the reason why I'm more interested in reading mysteries nowadays. But it's really cute and sapphic and cozy, even when they get back to sort of the more crime mystery solving aspect of it. The stakes do get a little higher. It's not as cozy, but I loved the second one. It's just more of what was in the first one. So if you like the first one, definitely keep an eye out and pick up this one as well. And they're novellas, so they're very quick reads. Absolutely loved them. Next one is The Eternal Ones by Namina Forna. This is the third and final book to her trilogy, which started with The Gilded Ones, which I read for the first time this year. I haven't read the sequel yet, but I hope to check it out before getting to the third book, before it comes out. It'll be a bit of a tight window. And The Gilded Ones, if you're not aware, is about a 16-year-old girl named Decca who lives in this world where there's a blood ceremony. Every girl, when she turns 16, is bled to see if she has red or gold blood. Decca is, of course, found to have gold blood, and after going through some absolutely horrific experiences, a woman who she calls White Hands rescues her and puts her in this new army that the emperor is putting together, full of girls just like her that are called Alaki, because they don't just have gold blood, they have these very rare gifts and make them kind of superhuman. And the emperor promises that if they serve in his army for a specific amount of time and annihilate this enemy, these monsters, then they will be forgiven for their quote-unquote impurity. And so, of course, Decca, like all the other girls, train very hard, hoping to just gain acceptance. They're paired up with these male soldiers in the regular army. But as this war goes on and there's all these different battles, there's this sort of conspiracy that she starts to become aware of, and she is different from other Alaki. So it's very interesting. I really wasn't expecting the twist at the end of the first one. And then the last one coming out in February is Tales of the Celestial Kingdom by Sulin Tan. This is a companion to The Daughter of the Moon Goddess, and that's a complete duology. This one is just going to be a sort of compilation of, I believe, short stories that take place before, during, and after, similar to River of Starlight for Shannon Chakraborty's City of Brass trilogy. I loved Daughter of the Moon Goddess, so of course I'm happy to read more content from that world, even if it's not, like a whole new story. It looks like, according to the description, there are 2 previously published, 7 original stories, and there's an epilogue to the duology, which I was really happy with how it ended. So as long as this doesn't create more questions, I am going to be so happy to see an epilogue. Moving into March, the first book I want to talk about is A Feather So Black by Lyra Celine. This is another book that takes inspiration from a little more of the Irish and Celtic mythology. It specifically features Tir na Nog, and our main characters are Fia, who is a changeling that was swapped at birth with a princess, and then the princess was taken back to Tir na Nog. And now, as Fia is growing older, even though the queen has loved and raised her as a daughter, she's also trained her to be a spy who will now go over to Tir na Nog, or the realm of the Fae, and try to bring the real princess, Iala, back before some sort of deadline. And Fia has to go with Prince Rogan, who is her childhood friend, but also the real princess's betrothed. So obviously there's going to be some romantic tension there, and I'm really interested in that. But yep, another one with Irish mythology, so pretty obvious why I'm interested. Next is Kindling by Tracy Chee. I'm not sure who's going to be interested or want to talk about Kindling. I don't expect it to be on a lot of lists from similar booktubers, but it's taking inspiration from Seven Samurai and The Magnificent Seven, and it's a YA fantasy about these teenage warriors who had magical powers. After a war, they've been sort of let go, they've been discarded, and their magic has been outlawed. They want to reclaim who they were, and they want to deal with their past, but I'm really not sure where they're going to go with this. I don't think the synopsis offers much in the way of like an overarching antagonist or anything, just that they're kind of still living through this aftermath of the war, and that they have a lot to deal with internally and externally, even though they've been discarded by the country that they fought for. And then next one coming out in March is one of the only sci-fi on the list, which is Floating Hotel by Grace Curtis. This is a debut. I want to give this one a chance. Not going to be high priority though. Second to last is the only graphic novel I have on the list. It just kind of caught my eye while I was browsing 2024 releases, but it's called The Baker and the Bard by Fern Haught. And so The Baker and the Bard is a YA fantasy about two best friends who set out on a journey for ingredients to fulfill an unusual bakery order and get caught up in matters of ecological destruction in the realm of the Fae. This was supposed to come out last year, apparently, but it looks super cute and the art style looks very cozy, so I hope I get a chance to check it out. I kind of hope my library will get a copy of it. The last book coming out in March is The Emperor and the Endless Palace by Justinian Huang. It also draws a lot of inspiration from wuxia and I think danmei, so that's kind of what caught my attention. I haven't heard much buzz about it yet. The cover is actually super stunning as well, but it reminds me of this one Chinese romance that I read called Three Lifetimes, or Three Lives, Three Loves, The Pillow Book, or also 1,000 Miles of Peach Blossom. It's about that one's about characters who are sort of reborn multiple times and they keep encountering each other and having like this tragic romance each time. It does have a happily ever after. This one seems to have a similar premise. These two characters who meet each other across lives and time, and hopefully there's a happily ever after, but I'm very curious about what will be a sort of Western hybrid take. Moving into April, the first book on the list is To Gaze Upon Wicked Gods by Molly X. Chang. This is another debut that was impacted by Kate Corain's nonsense, so definitely give it a look. I have to admit, I've actually already read this. I got a digital ARC from NetGalley, same as the earlier novella I was talking about. I mean, I'm still looking forward to it, but I do have misgivings, and I will probably post a review on my thoughts sooner or later. definitely before the book comes out. To Gaze Upon Wicked Gods is marketing as an enemies to lovers sort of Asian fantasy, featuring a main character, Ru Ying, who has death magic in a world where there are people who are born with magical powers of all different kinds, but they are kind of dying out. There's fewer of them born all the time, and their world has been colonized by a Western civilization called Rome that crossed over through a magical portal that opened up one day. And Ru Ying has to work together with a Roman prince as his sort of secret assassin, but he is basically promising to provide for her sister and grandmother if she does everything he asks of her. So it's definitely a super interesting premise. If you really like death magic, you will probably enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to seeing everybody else's thoughts when it comes out. Next on the list is The Dead Cat Tail Assassins by Pete Jelly Clark. I have not read anything else by Clark, but I've heard really good things, and our main character is Evine the Eviscerator, who is a very skilled assassin, part of the titular Dead Cat Tail Assassins. But there are some very interesting things that are going to happen when she's given a contract, and I don't think she carries it out. And there are consequences, of course. So this one is going to be a novella, I believe, and I hope that if I like it, I will be more enthusiastic about checking out Clark's other works. Next is my definite number one most anticipated book of 2024, which is Heavenly Tyrant by Shiran J. Zhao.
This right here is my favorite thing ever in the history of forever. I think about this every day. I think about this all night long. I stay awake, not sleeping, because I'm thinking about this.
This is the sequel to Iron Widow, which, if you don't know, is one of my favorite books of all time and is a sort of like sci-fi AU retelling featuring the first and only female emperor of China, Wu Zetian. It's got giant mechas. It was inspired by the author's great dissatisfaction with an anime and deciding they could do the concept better, which they did. They nailed it. And it was delayed. It was supposed to be published in 2023, but they were pretty open and transparent about the fact that, just the lack of support for authors in the publishing industry and the fact that their payout wasn't enough to live on meant that they had to take time making money other ways. And so, that was what caused the delay, but it's finally, hopefully coming out in late April, and I cannot wait. I want every special edition that might exist for it. Next is Dragon Fruit by Makia Lucier, I think is how you pronounce it. This one pretty much just caught my eye because it's another fantasy that's inspired by a different culture than the typical stuff. This one being inspired by Pacific Island mythology. It features our main character, Hanalei of Tamarind, who is kind of like maybe an island version of a princess, but it specifically does not say princess. But she is forced into exile when her father stole a sea dragon egg that was meant for an actual princess. And then there's another character who has a very long, complicated name, but is also abbreviated as Sam, who will cross paths with Hanalei. I believe they're searching for an item like the dragon fruit, which has wish-granting powers. And I have no idea why, but I am very curious and interested in what kind of story this will be. The next one is a totally off-the-wall, random one that I found. It's a novella called A Magical Girl Retires by Sulyeon Park and translated by Anton Her. I actually got a digital arc for this one. I haven't read it yet, but I really, really am excited to check it out. It's it sounds like it's written for people like me, millennials who loved magical girls growing up, and it's about a 29-year-old woman who is about to, unalive herself, but gets stopped by a guardian angel who wants her to become a modern-day magical girl. I don't know if it's gonna be satire, but it is going to definitely turn her into more of an office lady version of a magical girl. She has to go to classes, she has to go to job fairs, she has to do paperwork, and her magic wand is a credit card. And I just think that the concept sounds so hilarious and so up my alley that I just hope for really, really good things from it. Next, we're going to move into May, which is kind of the last big release month so far for me. I hopefully will do an update of this video later on in the year if more titles come out that I'm interested in for the latter half. But first up in May is Goddess of the River by Vaishnavi Patel. This is the same author who wrote Kaikeyi, and it's not related to Kaikeyi, I believe, but it might, but I think it draws from similar mythological inspiration. If you liked Kaikeyi like I did, this should be sort of an auto pickup. It should definitely be on your radar. It seems a little more high fantasy because the main character this time is a goddess and her prince son. And there's a curse and an oath and a river whose course will change the fate of the world. And so it's another myth retelling that's very feminine-centric, which I've been very interested in after reading Kaikeyi. I would love to see these kinds of stories outside of Greek mythology more often. So yeah. Also in May is The Brides of High Hill by Ni Vo. This is the next entry in the Singing Hills cycle. I really hope I get a digital arc of this one because I loved Mammoths at the Gates, and when I got to read that one. The Singing Hills cycle is probably my favorite novella series to recommend. It's these very nice, self-contained short stories about a wandering cleric named Chi who gathers up stories for the abbey that they work at. And, they have this sort of talking bird companion that travels with them that is sometimes there and sometimes not. And they get into all kinds of really interesting adventures just trying to gather up these stories and records of people's lives. Next up is Emberclaw by L.R. Lamb. This is the sequel to Dragonfall, which I'm actually reading right now, and it's a little slow. It's a little slow going for me, but I am enjoying it. And so this will be the sequel. But Dragonfall is about a world where centuries ago, dragons were exiled and sort of pushed into another world that was separated by a veil, and humans stole their magic and have been living off of it. And after many centuries, the humans have kind of forgotten about that, and they now worship dragons as their gods. And this one particular dragon, Everin, gets pulled through the veil through a mishap of sorts and bound somewhat to our other main character, Arcady, and it's his destiny to bring the rest of the dragons back through the veil and, save them because they are dying off in this other world they've been exiled to, but it will require him to gain the complete trust of Arcady and then kill them. So I am very interested. They have a very interesting dynamic so far, and I'm very interested to see where that story goes. Next up is The Fireborn Blade by Charlotte Bond. This is another one from Tor.com, and I mean, you'll notice a lot of these are from Tor.com that I'm just like really interested in. I feel like when I'm feeling experimental and feel like trying something new, Tor.com is definitely the place I go. So this one has dragons and a female knight named Madeleine, who is very well trained, but it seems like something happens and she's forced to go on some quest and to redeem her honor. She has to retrieve the fabled Fireborn Blade, and it's marketed as having a rich history of dragons, ill-fated knights, scheming squires, and sapphic love. So I am very interested in it. Not high priority, just another one of those. It's something new I want to check out. The next one and last one for May is Blood at the Root by Librarian Williams. And this is a debut. I can't remember if Williams's book was also affected by Kate Corain. He is a POC, and his book does seem like it would have been caught up in the madness. So definitely check this one out if you guys get a chance. To me, it sounds like if you liked Legendborn by Tracy Dion, you should definitely give this one a shot. It features a teenager named Malik whose mother vanished 10 years ago, and he discovered he had these powers, but he doesn't have a lot of control over them, so he's kept them hidden. And now that he's 17, he goes to a historically Black college for young Black magic users, and he wants to start a new life, leave his trauma behind. But then stuff happens. It has a bit of Lovecraft, but redone. So very interested to see his take on that. These last couple are spread out over the rest of the year. So in July, we have Masquerade by Oo Sangoyomi. I did get a digital arc I just found out recently for this one, so I'm very excited to check it out. So this one's very similar to A Drop of Venom that I mentioned earlier. It's a Greek retelling, but mixed in with a different mythology. So in this case, Masquerade is a reimagined 15th century West Africa that will be the setting for a retelling of the Persephone myth. It features a woman named Ododo. I'm not sure how you say her name. I'm so sorry. And a warrior king of Yoruba land. And she is, of course, abducted like the classic Persephone myth, but then she's going to have to, step up into this new role and figure things out. So even though it comes out in July, I will try to find time this spring to read the digital arc and give my thoughts on it. Next up, coming up in August, is another T. Kingfisher. This past year, I read a couple different T. Kingfisher books and I loved them, so of course I'm going to check out the next one, A Sorceress Comes to Call. T. Kingfisher does dark fairy tales, they do dark fantasy, and they do them in short form, more like novella to very short novel length. So I love that I can kind of breeze through these, especially with Kingfisher's writing style. Yeah, it says it's a dark retelling of the Brothers Grimm's Goose Girl, but the Brothers Grimm's kind of already did dark to begin with, so I'm not sure how it's going to get even darker, but I will, of course, try to pick that one up and read it as soon as it comes out. In September, there is a book called A Dark and Drowning Tide by Alison Saft that I'm interested in checking out. This one is pretty different from most of the other ones on my list. It is another murder mystery. I don't even think this one is fantasy though, so I'm not sure. I'll probably wait to see what other people say about this one before truly picking it up or giving it a chance, but it's on my radar. I do hope to hear what people's thoughts are, especially if you get digital arcs. Let me know your thoughts. It features a sharp-tongued folklorist and her academic rival, because they're trapped on a ship and the folklorist's mentor gets murdered on their journey to find a fabled spring. And that's really about all I know. So it is, like I said, coming out in September. So there's quite a wait for that one. And then last couple, we have another debut, Divine Mortals by Amanda M. Helander. I haven't heard anybody say anything about this. I don't even think there's a cover reveal for this one yet. Yeah, so there's hardly anything about this one. It is supposed to come out in November, so I guess it's no wonder that there's no real marketing for it yet, but it does have a listing on Goodreads that caught my eye because it features a woman, an 18-year-old girl named Mona Arnett, who was blessed by the crow god of love, which, I've never heard that combo before. And so she has the power to traverse the watery realm of the gods and speak with the 7 deities there. And she can foretell soulmate matches. And usually she refuses to read her own match, but then she's like brought in to divine the king's soulmate. But then it turns out that she's the king's soulmate. So very interested. I do like the soulmate trope in a lot of fanfic, but I don't see it too often in traditional publishing done in a way that I like. Very interested, very little information. And then the last one is The Lotus Empire by Tasha Suri. I have actually been following Suri on Instagram as she's posted some updates. She's going through sort of final edits on The Lotus Empire right now. I still need to read The Oleander Sword, and it was supposed to come out earlier this year. I think some websites still even mistakenly have the date earlier in 2024, but it is, according to Suri, coming out in November. And this will be, I believe, the conclusion. Yes, it's a conclusion to the Burning Kingdoms trilogy that started with the Jasmine Throne. If you haven't read the Jasmine Throne, you have plenty of time, and I highly recommend it. I read it a couple years ago. It features 2 female main characters, Malini and Priya. Priya is a servant in this temple who survived a massacre that happened years ago, and she has sort of these hidden powers that she's hoping to develop and then use them to fight back for her people, because her specific nation has been conquered as part of this empire. And then Malini is a princess of the empire, but her brother has ousted her and sort of like exiled her to this same temple where Priya is. And the 2 of them cross paths that way, and it sets off all kinds of really fascinating potential plot lines. And, not as much political intrigue in this one, though there are hints of it at the end of the first book. So I'm really looking forward to seeing where it goes in the second book. And yeah, that's all of the books that I have written down to look forward to in 2024 so far. Like I said, it's the latter half of the year is pretty light so far, so I may post an update later in the year. If any of these are ones you're looking forward to, let me know. If I brought any new ones to your attention, let me know. And if I missed any that you think are worth adding to the list, definitely let me know in the comments. But until the next time, I hope you all read something interesting and take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.